Wink, wink. Okay.
Let's do it.
Ready?
Yes.
Episode 2.
Yes. All right. Hi. Welcome to episode 2 of the podcast.
Yay.
To my right, why don't you introduce
To
yourself?
your right?
Okay. I don't need this.
If you're
Strong
listening,
start.
you can't see, but she is not to his right.
That joke would go over the listeners' heads. Yeah, but to my left.
Hello, my name is Kojima.
Yes.
And to my left,
I am still Reese McTeague.
That was beautiful. That was crazy. Like that was very smooth the way you did that. Anyway, I'm Josh Nascimento, and we're gonna be every week we're gonna be reviewing different parts of film history. Someone's gonna do like some research and kind of present it to the rest of the group, and then we're gonna review a movie. I definitely said this last week, so I don't know why I'm
you
explaining.
should do
it.
it
Yeah.
every week because some people might skip the intro. Go
enough.
right into this,
Yeah.
which means they miss getting to know us on
That's
a
true.
deeper level.
Yes.
Please go back and watch that episode if you haven't.
Yeah.
We went into it
We did. Yeah.
about us
Yes.
and movies.
Yeah, both cool things. Yeah. So this week we are doing how Wes Anderson used his short film to skyrocket him into the Hollywood system. So yeah, so
Skyrocket him. I
System.
like what you did there.
that wasn't even intentional. That was not intentional. But the movie we watched this week and we're gonna review is Bottle Rocket.
Okay.
His first movie. So so he created a short film feature, all the same script. Anyway, let's get into it. My research. So Wes Anderson was born May 1st, 1969 in Houston, Texas. I'm not going to do a lot of this like early biography stuff because it's kind of boring sometimes. But
I think it's interesting.
oh, thank you, Thank you. He wanted to be an architect growing up, which is like really random given.
I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
That's probably
gosh.
why he
Wait.
pays so much attention to production
Yeah.
design, right?
Yeah.
Literally. Oh my gosh.
I didn't
See,
even think of
these
that.
things are very important and
Yeah.
interesting
Yeah.
There you
because it
go.
makes sense.
Yeah. Doesn't make
Okay,
sense.
please continue.
But he wrote short plays and made Super 8 movies as a kid, which if you don't know, Reese, you might not know, but Super 8 is like film. It's like there's different sizes, millimeter sizes of film.
Okay.
Most movies are shot on 35 millimeter.
35, 16.
But Super 8 millimeter film was just like a super cheap way that consumers could pay for films. Now most movies are shot on digital, so it doesn't really matter. But
That's not true.
Is it? I mean, you would know. Yeah, you're a cinematographer. Yeah, fair enough.
Tell him.
Yeah, tell me. Yeah. But
Film's
yeah,
coming back.
yeah, fair enough.
Or it
Tarantino-
never went away, to be honest. Probably, yeah.
Tarantino, Nolan, a bunch of people shoot on. Anyway, so Wes Anderson met Owen Wilson. Yes, that Owen Wilson. At a playwriting workshop at the University of Texas, where they both attended. Anderson graduated with a degree in philosophy, which is funny. He never studied film.
That's
He got
amazing.
a degree in philosophy. And Owen and Wes Anderson wrote a script called Bottle Rocket that they really liked. They originally wanted to make it more of like a Godfather style. You hear the car in the back or whatever that is. Hopefully that's not coming through. So they originally wanted to make it more of like a Godfather, like crime, like dark, gritty movie. But their sensibilities kind of shone through after the first draft, and it became, a lot more comedic as the movie was. So they had this feature script, but what they did is they essentially took a lot of the first kind of chunk of the movie and they made it into a 13-minute short film. So they borrowed money from their dads, and they I get the sense that, like, I don't know, based on like his Wes Anderson's movies, I get the sense that like his dad was very wealthy. I don't know if you guys get that at all. Like both of they come from like wealth. I don't know if you guys.
I don't know. I haven't seen a lot of Wes Anderson, so I don't know.
Which I guess we'll get into.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they borrowed money from their fathers, and they made this 13-minute short film. They shot it in black and white because at the time, well, still color film is more expensive than black and white. But yeah, so they the movie is the short film is essentially the first little chunk. I mean, you saw it actually on the way here.
Yes.
But it's their first kind of job. Like so the script is about essentially 3 kind of 20-somethings who are a little lost in life, and they want to become like these notorious kind of thieves and criminals, but they're not really that good at it. So it's kind of their first job is the short film is kind of leading up to. Did you see some of it or?
I don't think so. No.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
It was in the movie.
Yeah. So they took a chunk from the feature
Right.
and they made it into the short film.
It was the other way around, no?
Well,
The short came first?
Yeah. The short came first.
Okay.
The short came first. Yeah. But yeah. So they ended up. They started shooting in May of 1992, and then they finished, and it was screened at Sundance Film Festival in 1994.
The short.
Yeah, the short.
Okay.
The short. So they ended up screening the movie the short at Sundance Film Festival, which is actually, do you know where it is?
Utah.
It's in Utah. Yeah.
Utah. Okay. But yeah, so they screened it there, which is if you don't know, the viewer, because I think you guys know, but it's one of those super big film festivals. It's awesome for like great filmmakers to get noticed and stuff like that. So they screened the short there, and a producer named Polly Platt loved it so much, and she kind of loved their voice, and so she showed it to a guy named James L. Brooks, who is a super prolific director, and he was actually like one of the big kind of creative minds behind The Simpsons, actually, interestingly. But yeah, so they showed it to him, and he really enjoyed it. But basically, he liked it, and he like wanted to see where it would go. So Wes, Owen, and Luke Wilson, Owen's brother, they all lived together at the time. So they all lived in one apartment, and actually, so Luke and Owen star in the short film. I should have mentioned that. But they all lived together at the time. So James L. Brooks goes to their apartment, and he said, "Let's read the script out loud together. Do like a sort of table read." So they read it, and it was apparently super, super, super long. Like it was like one of the longest scripts they had ever read. And he was like, "Guys, you gotta like shorten this down." And so he was like telling them kind of like notes on that. And from his account, he said that the appropriate thing to do after that read aloud was to meet again in like 3 or 4 years after they had polished the script, and then like maybe
3 to 4 years?
Yeah, literally. Yeah. Like after they had, not even like on any like they wouldn't be hired or anything. It was just like, hey, come back when you have something a little better, a little more polished. So then he left. And then as he was leaving, Wes came across the street with him, and he was like, "Do we have a deal? Are you going to make this movie?" He's like, he like gave kind of a bureaucratic answer where he was like, studios, it's kind of tough. And then he was like, no. Wes was like, no. Do we have a deal? Like, will you make this movie with us? And he was like, honestly, man, I don't know. And so he ended up kind of changing his mind. He convinced the studio. So the studio that made it was called Gracie Films. It was like his production company. They didn't want to make it, and James L. Brooks kind of like forced their hand and was like, "We're gonna make this movie." So they ended up agreeing to make it, but first he was like, "You guys got to rewrite the script." So they moved them down to Los Angeles. They were living in, I believe, Austin at the time, and they moved Owen and Luke, Owen, and Wes down to Los Angeles, and they put them up in a little office in Gracie Films. And they rewrote the script for 2 years. So they literally like sat there and just like rewrote the script. They said that like Wes had a really weird way of doing it where he would like get a bunch of like photographs and like put them on the board, and like Owen would like constantly procrastinate and stuff like that. And so it was like a little process because like
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Friends.
Yeah. Yeah. Procrastination. Yeah. But so they weren't part of this like Hollywood system. Like they didn't know how to write a script. So Wes says that like essentially James L. Brooks, like they would give him tons of notes, and he was like, essentially James L. Brooks taught me how to write a script, which obviously comes into play in all of his other movies. But sorry, let me find my place. Then they, after 2 years of rewriting, they got into pre-production. James Brooks met with James Caan, who I don't know if you guys know. I know Michael, He's actually in The Godfather. He plays Sonny, who's one of the brothers. Very like legendary actor. Like carries a lot of heft to him. He was also an elf. He was the dad in Elf.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to say the dad in Elf is his claim to fame for recent, for the young folks today.
For our generation.
Absolutely. Why didn't you just say so? Gosh.
He was in the movie.
Yeah. But yeah, super legendary actor. And so James Brooks met with him and got him to be in the movie. He has a very small role in it. He plays Mr. Henry. But I think that because his name's on the movie poster, even though he's like kind of barely in it, I think that it was like partially to kind of sell the movie to like audiences. Because it did star like complete unknowns. Like no one knew who Owen and Luke
That's so
Wilson
wild because now we all know who these people are.
Yeah.
So it feels like, all-star film.
Right.
So like to think about it, like when it came out, it was just him.
Literally
that was
unknowns.
known.
Yeah.
It's like, wow. It's kind of, it takes imagination to like really think
Right.
that situation.
Right. Definitely. Yeah. Yeah. So he got James Caan to be in the movie. A lot of other roles were played by friends and family, interestingly. So the guy who plays Bob Mapplethorpe, who's like the third member of their little like crime trio, he was just a friend of theirs. Another Wilson brother who actually lived with them at the time as well, Andrew Wilson. He played Future Man, who's who's Bob Mapplethorpe's brother. Kumar, who's part of the team. He's the safecracker. He was just a friend. Actually, Kumar's son is in the initial job when they go into the bookstore. He's the one with the glasses who has they rob him. And then I think there's a couple other roles that were played by friends and family. But yeah. And at first Owen didn't even want to act in it because he was like, it doesn't feel like a real movie because like we're unknowns. Like let's get real actors to do this. But he ended up doing it. Towards the end of the shoot, Luke Wilson said later in an interview he started to feel very sad because he was like, this is going to be the last movie we make. Like he was like, they're not going to let us make another movie. Like this is so, and he's like, I thought that kind of came through in the film, which we can talk about later, but it definitely has like a bit of melancholy to it, the movie. I don't know if you sense that at all. I think you're think that you didn't as much.
Yeah, I think the ending, I mean, if we just want to go there, but the ending where they're kind of all sitting together at the prison and they're just like,
spoilers.
Yeah, and they're just like, well, we did it. Right?
Oh,
like,
yeah,
it does feel, now that you say that, I see
they're
where
talking
that
about
comes
the
from.
film probably.
Yeah.
We did it.
Yeah.
That's so cute.
Yeah. But yeah, so he didn't feel like they were going to make another movie, but they finished the movie. They tested it with audience. They did like test screenings with different audiences, and it tested horribly. They were like, this is one of the worst like screened movies we've ever had. Yeah.
Why?
I think it's because like I think looking back we can say like, oh, Wes Anderson, he's like an auteur or whatever. He's like a director that has a lot of heft. Like people like kind of like there's like a lot of, I think people almost like assume he's good, but it's almost like if you saw this movie, you'd be like, why are they acting like that? Like why are they like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like why are they so weird? Like
Interesting.
I feel like he's more of an acquired taste for people too.
Yeah.
And so even thinking about now, like I'm wondering back then if there were really other people kind of in his lane really at all that were making weird movies like that.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, he was kind of
fresh air.
He was doing his own thing, and like people didn't really like it, and
Wow.
yeah, so it tested horribly. Lots of people actually walked out. Like people would literally walk out of the theater in like groups. But so the studio like saw that. They asked them to reshoot some stuff. They changed the opening. The opening was a little more like the short film. It's kind of them just like talking about TV or whatever. But in the opening to the final feature is like they're getting Anthony, who's played by Luke Wilson, out of his mental hospital, or I don't know what the term is, but it's like a voluntary kind of mental hospital. It's not like a I don't know.
Right.
But yeah, so
Escaping.
Yeah.
Out of the window.
Yeah, escaping. Yeah. But yeah, so they changed it. They reshot stuff. The plan was so actually they started testing it a little more. They did some more screenings. people still really hated it, and like they're like, what? Like literally, everyone was like so nervous about the film opening, and like, what is, and they kind of like gave, like, some producers would tell Wes Anderson, they would be like, E.T. had like the worst screenings ever, and you know how famous that movie ended up being.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah. But Wes tells a story of a particular screening that went horribly, but he kind of found some solace in, where they screened it at the Promenade, actually, in Santa Monica, at an AMC there. Yeah, which is fun because I'm like, oh, I know that place. But so they screened it at the Promenade, and a bunch of people hated it. They were walking out, all this stuff.
Classic.
And they had like little audience cards where they would write like, what did you like about it? What did you not like about it? People would literally write like sucked, like in big letters.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, literally everyone hated it. But then there was like this girl who was like sitting there a lot longer than everyone else, and she's writing, and then they get the card. And it's like this like dissertation, like this essay about like what she liked about it, and like how she's like, oh, the characters are like feeling this like melancholic sadness or whatever. Like she was kind of like analyzing the deeper meanings and stuff like that. And Wes was like, this is our audience. Like this is who we're making these movies for. And I think that kind of explains a lot of like how he's kind of gone with his career since then. Kind of like you might see him as like pretentious and like, that kind of stuff. But like, it kind of informs like what he's going for and yeah, all that stuff. But yeah, so the LA Times, so they brought the movie to Sundance again. They were like, okay, they loved our short film, like we got to get this into Sundance. And the way that, like, I'm sure you guys also know this, but this is for the audience. The way that Sundance works with features is that a lot of times, like, they'll get festival buzz, like, and that can like propel a movie to like do a little better at the box office or get critical acclaim or like eventually end up at the Academy Awards or whatever. So they're like, we need to get some buzz because like this is a $5 million movie. No one knows any of the people in it except for James Caan, and like we need to get some buzz on this movie. And so they submitted it to Sundance. It didn't get in. And they were like super bummed about this because they were literally like, the short got in. Like, why are we like not? So yeah, so they didn't have that benefit of kind of festival buzz when it opened. So a couple people liked it. It kind of flew under the radar a little bit. It bombed at the box office, like did not make any money. But the LA Times loved the movie and like in the review said they were mad that Sundance didn't accept it. But yeah, certain other people loved it. Martin Scorsese writes an essay about how he really loves it. He introduced it. I think it was Ebert and Roper, the show that they had, or there was a movie review show that Martin Scorsese went on, and he counted down his top 10 movies of the 1990s, and it was on there.
Wow.
Yeah. So certain people loved it. Wes and Owen wrote another film called Rushmore. It's actually set in a high school. I don't know. Have you seen that movie? So they ended up getting to make that for Disney. I don't know if this is like I try to like remain like reliable with my sources. I heard that the reason that Disney picked it up was because they saw Bottle Rocket and they really loved it. And so they're like, we'll buy this movie, but that's not confirmed. So yeah, and then they all kind of went on into like super prolific careers. Owen Wilson, obviously, in every studio comedy for like 10 years after that. Luke Wilson, had like an awesome career. He was in Anchorman, and he was the main guy in Legally Blonde, like the main love interest. And then Wes Anderson obviously got to make a ton more movies. He made The Royal Tenenbaums after that, gone on Fantastic Mr. Fox, Grand Budapest Hotel, But yeah, so Owen Wilson's actually appeared in all of Wes Anderson's movies but 2. And he wrote the first 3 with him. So he wrote Bottle Rocket, Rushmore, and I believe The Royal Tenenbaums. And then he kind of went off. And Wes Anderson kind of did his own thing. But yeah, so let's get to the movie that we all watched together. So I'm going to give a quick synopsis. Oh, I already gave the synopsis.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what did you guys think of it?
Wow, thank you for explaining all that. That was so interesting.
Thank you.
Me first? Wow, okay.
It's not about,
So-
let's not go in order. Let's just, you say stuff, I say
sure.
stuff,
Yeah,
you say
yeah.
stuff.
Conversation.
I mean, so this is actually only the second Wes Anderson movie that I've seen.
What was the first one?
It was The French Dispatch
Mm.
about a year
In
and a
the
half ago
theaters?
in the theater.
What did you think about that?
You know, and okay, and you've both seen more Wes Anderson movies.
Yeah.
So I feel like as a first Wes Anderson movie, that one's kind of interesting.
I would-
Maybe
It was-
advanced, huh?
You said what?
It might be like advanced
Yeah.
to go into that as the
Yeah,
first
it was
film.
Yeah.
really. I'm trying to think of what I knew about him before I saw that, because I
Right.
knew what the Grand Budapest Hotel was. I knew what Fantastic Mr. Fox was. I just had never seen any of them.
Mm.
And yeah, it was very unlike other movies I
Yeah.
had seen and I was used to.
Yeah.
And I definitely thought it was interesting, but I just didn't really get it. And it was pretty hard to follow.
Mm.
So
at
it makes
some
sense
moments.
that people said it sucked when they watched Bottle Rocket.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't.
First impression, Wes Anderson. It sucks.
That wasn't my first. That wasn't my first impression, though.
Yeah.
But that one, it's kind of like 3 shorter stories within a film.
Right.
And I thought some of them were more interesting than others. I remember one of them, I just didn't really get what was going on at
Which
all.
one was
like
that?
It was hard to follow. The one in the middle about like some rebellion kind of thing going on.
The one with
Tim-
Timothy Chalamet.
Yeah. I didn't really follow what was happening. They also talked really fast in that one. And a lot of them actually.
Mm.
Like it just went by really quick, and there's so many characters. So I don't know.
A lot of
But
characters. Yeah.
so coming into this movie, having had that, I was kind of just like, am I gonna understand what's happening? And I will say, and because that wasn't, I mean, I'm sure there are comedic elements in that one. It's not really. I didn't take Wes Anderson as like a comedy kind of person.
Oh, interesting.
And so coming into this, I wasn't coming in expecting like this is gonna be funny.
Oh.
And so I think I was trying to take it a little seriously at some points, and I was like, I don't know if this is like just supposed to be funny or if this is, because the Owen Wilson's character especially is such a character.
Yeah.
Like he's just absolutely ridiculous. Like you're just supposed to laugh.
Yeah.
But it took me a while to realize I should just be laughing at this guy,
Yeah.
So I will say I definitely enjoyed it. I think I left feeling still like I don't get what the point of this was, really, But I think part of that too was because of the way I was going into it.
Mm.
But if I just knew that this was, I mean, I'm sure there's something he was trying to say too, but
Yeah.
if I appreciated the comedy more of it, I think. But definitely the last 20 minutes were so funny, I thought. And I thought their characters, like Owen Wilson's character, Dignan, right? And then Bob, I thought their dynamic was so funny. And especially, just the 3 of them with Luke Wilson's character being kind of a middleman. I thought that was really funny. But I think overall, I don't know. I don't feel like every movie has to have like a point or what it's trying to do. But if it had one, I didn't really get what it was, but I thought it was fun. So
Fair enough.
Maybe that was the point.
Yeah, maybe.
I feel like the point was kind of buried in it was kind of the idea of like them trying to find meaning in their lives.
Right. Yeah.
Because like Anthony, who's played by Luke Wilson, says like I checked myself into this mental hospital because I was with friends and they said, do you want to go water skiing or do you want to go whatever? And then he's like, not only did I realize, what does he say? Not only did I realize,
I never wanted to hear anything about water sports ever again,
or see any of these people
ever again. And so and I got that a little bit, and I think, but it definitely wasn't like it was a pretty subtle element of it.
Yeah.
And I thought it was interesting, but Yeah, I thought the last 20 minutes, that last heist that they're trying to do was so funny.
Incredible. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm trying to remember what the last scene was. Like the last scene.
Spoilers again, I guess.
Yeah. The last one is when they're visiting Dignan in prison.
And they're trying to...
They're kind of just talking, and then they're like getting ready to leave, and he, as a joke, is saying, all right, we've only got 30 seconds. We're going to walk past this guard, and you've got 3 seconds to And they're like, whoa, slow down. And he's just like going on this plan.
Yeah.
That was really funny, too. But then they leave, and he just walks away, and his face kind of gets really like downcast and just like, But
yeah. Can I respond to what you just shared?
Yeah.
'Cause like hearing that it started with some like college friends.
Yeah.
Just made me feel like, or like made me think about my time in college. Like when I just like had entered this film world, it was with my like college friends, right? And there were some writers, actors in my class that was so funny. That is still very much funny. And I just think about how like, wow, like maybe that's their future, you know, like, and it's cool that like everyone talks about how like the way you enter in this like industry is so like there isn't one right path, and it's just cool to see this like one aspect of like college friends writing together. I think watching the movie, it made me think about just how fun it will be to like act in those roles where you can just like say the most random thing. And since like the whole world is like set around that like that's the normal, you know? And I was like, wow, must be so fun. It must have been so fun. Who knows what really went down, but like from the acting standpoint, I feel like that would have been really fun to do.
Well, making it with all of your friends. And it's so interesting that so many actors were just his friends. Like the guy who played Bob, he was one of my favorite parts of the movie. I thought he was hilarious.
So he doesn't have like an acting career after that?
I actually didn't look it up, but he's not.
I looked him up, but that's like the only notable thing really that I saw.
So iconic.
Yeah. Yeah, he was amazing. Yeah, for someone who like didn't really act ever after that or even before that, he was really good. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah. But yeah.
Why do you love this movie?
Ooh, good question. I think I love there's something about the fact that I feel like this in the best of like Wes Anderson's moments in like his movies, you're laughing at these characters, but you're also like you empathize with them at the exact same time. Like I feel like a lot of like even like, and this is not a knock on Lady Bird at all because I love Lady Bird, but like I think like a lot of like dramedy movies like Lady Bird, they'll have like a funny scene and then like a more dramatic scene or something like that. But in this, it's like all together. Like you're literally laughing and empathizing at the same time because they're so goofy. But like you can see this insecurity in Dignan, and you can see like how kind of lost they are and stuff like that. I think it's so funny. Like I'm always kind of down to like watch. Like if I'm down to watch it, it's because it's so funny. Like these goofy characters and like these crazy like heists and stuff like that. I think those are always really fun and I think the idea, I feel like it does it like you said subtly, but like I think this idea of like 20-something kind of lostness and them kind of finding their place in the world and kind of being depressed because of it. Like Anthony is depressed and he's like he feels like he has to check himself into like a mental hospital because of it. Like is very profound. But yeah, I feel like that's why I love it.
Yeah, I feel like I definitely like to watch it again, knowing the kind of movie that I'm watching. Because I think I just went off French Dispatch and even other things that I've heard about him, and I just am not familiar enough with his movies to really know what to be expecting, I think.
Yeah.
And I can't believe I haven't watched some of his other movies. Like, I definitely have had Fantastic Mr. Fox on my list for a while, too, and I just haven't watched it yet. Yeah, I think it's so interesting how movies can screen so poorly, and like to hear that about E.T. too is really crazy.
Yeah.
But I also thought it was so interesting that it didn't get into Sundance because it got in the first time, but also the first time they didn't have any kind of studio or anything backing them, right? Like, how did they get their short film in?
Yeah.
Because with shorts, like, you can have a block. It must be less, like, less of a commitment.
Probably.
Because they'll play, like, 4 shorts for a block versus a feature is, like, takes a whole block.
Have you ever been to, like, Sundance or any of the major film festivals?
I've been to Sundance once. Nice. My freshman year in college.
Oh.
But it's so crazy that they got their short film in when they were truly nobodies.
Yeah.
Like, right? They weren't
Literally.
really, yeah.
Yeah.
And then they have this studio backing them, and they can't get it in.
Yeah.
It was so interesting.
Yeah. Very bizarre.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder how, like, what their, like, mind was through that process.
Mm-hmm.
But then still, like, the recognition from Scorsese's.
Yeah.
Like, that must have been, like, some hope, you know, like, okay, someone does see it. And then it sounds like that one response in that survey where she was, like, really going through it.
Yeah.
Finding his audience, like, meant something.
Yeah. And it's interesting, too, as a creator, like, a bunch of people can crap on your stuff, but if you know that you're it's resonating with someone in the way that you intended it to, like, that's enough.
Yeah.
Do you feel that way when you make things?
I do. I think I do, like, go back and forth of, like, the desire to, like, reach many. Because, like, I want to, like, influence many as much as possible for the better. But, like, the reality is that, right? It's almost like how I want to be best friends with everyone that I meet. But the reality is that's not possible. Yeah. So
you still have more friends than anybody else I know. So you're doing a pretty good job. So
I
love you guys.
Everyone, yeah. I actually had a similar thing where it was literally just one comment. So when I was in middle school, I made a lot of stop motion, different animation videos, and I put them up on YouTube. I think the highest I ever got to was like 134 subscribers, like literally nothing. But I had this like I had like a little opening like title card that was very similar to like the Marvel opening title card because I was very influenced by Marvel at the time. But basically, I made a sketch in 2020 during quarantine, and I put it up on my YouTube channel. And at the end, I put like a little bit of the old like title card that I had from my old videos, and I got a comment that said, I loved the old logo at the end, the old 2015 logo at the end. It brought back many good memories. And I was like, the idea that like I could, and this is not me bragging at all. It's just like, it's kind of the reason, the idea that I could impact someone that I was like a fond part of their past was just like, it's kind of like why we do art. I feel like it's like to connect with others and I guess to feel less alone. I feel like,
yeah.
I'm even thinking about like us starting this podcast and like we really have no expectations, right? Like
no,
right.
Honestly,
no
it might be just
yeah.
It might be us like weeks after weeks just like recording, uploading. No one sees
Zero
it.
views.
But like we're gonna say to each other, we did it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Because like we wanted to do this and it's fun.
Yeah. There's go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna you finish your thought.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I think like there's something about the creative process that is kind of therapeutic, and so literally if no one watches it, like I'm kind of okay because I get to hang out with you guys and we get to make this thing together. But yeah, there is also something to like the feedback that's very powerful.
Yeah. I wrestle with those two ideas all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what I was going to say was less related to what you were talking about. But I was thinking just in terms of the movie, how do we feel about scoring movies?
I I feel like I've began to notice scores more. And actually, the last episode, Nobody Knows.
Sorry, scoring as in like giving it a score. We thought about the movie. Should clarify that.
Fair enough.
I should clarify that.
Musical score. Yeah.
Like for reviewing a movie.
Yeah.
Like, do you ever think about? Like,
I have a Letterboxd account.
So you do rate movies. So
yeah, I do
so
now.
what would you rate this movie?
Let's see what I did.
Oh, you gave it a score?
Letterboxed it.
Yeah, I letterbox every film I watch.
There you go.
Now I'm scared.
Sounds
I
like
don't
a time
remember what I said.
Yeah, I'm down to
Well,
give...
you guys talk about your scores.
I'm down to
first.
give a score. If
Yeah,
that's-
please.
yeah.
Go if you have one.
I'd probably give this like a 9 out of 10. I think it is like there's definitely flaws. I think like after the first kind of heist, it gets a little bit like the pacing slows down a little bit. But I'm kind of always down. I'm often down to watch it, and I have like a lot of fond memories with it. So probably give it a 9.
You just checked your scores. You already gave one. So
Tell us.
go.
Well,
Yeah.
Letterboxd does it out of 5.
Right.
But you can do half.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
technically
yeah.
it can
Oh.
be 10.
Got it.
Yeah.
I guess, in a way. I had put down 4 out of 5. So, which is a 8 out
8
of 10.
Yeah.
There you go.
Wow.
What would you give it?
I think I'd probably give it a 3 out of 5 first viewing.
Okay.
I think
6 out of
again,
10.
yeah, I think if I watched it again, having a better idea of what I'm watching, and I think it is a pretty rewatchable movie.
Yeah.
Because it's not super long. Like when I started it and I saw it was 90 minutes, I was like, "Oh, awesome!" That's like so many movies now are
I
like
know.
almost 3
Why
hours.
is that?
So-
I just don't get it. Okay.
Which sometimes I love, but yeah, you can only do that so much. But and it is a comedy and it's lighthearted and it's fun. And there are some more like, there's some depressing stuff underlying,
Yeah.
but especially that last act, I just thought was really worth kind of watching the rest for. So if I watch it again, I'm sure I'd like it more. But for now, yeah,
Yeah.
Cool.
yeah.
It was really cool to have seen his other films, like seeing the first film and like some aspects of it that still like, I was like, oh my gosh, his style was like already like there
Yeah.
in a way. Like I
Yeah.
think the straightforward, like the notes, I think the plan of the heist,
Yes.
those scenes, I was like, oh my gosh, that is so him.
Yeah.
So it was really cool to see that.
A lot of the visual elements were there. They weren't
Yeah.
as like intense, especially
Right.
like by the time you get to the French Dispatch, it's like the visual elements are like so intense and it's so like
Yeah.
stylish, like stylistic in that way. So this movie had like some kind of those stylistic
Right.
elements, but it wasn't like all the way.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
What a ride.
Go films.
Go film.
I was gonna ask a question that's kind of a tangential conversation, but
Yeah.
with this movie being a movie, this is definitely like not the first movie you've seen of Wes Anderson's, for the two of you at least.
Right.
Pretty early for you, Reese.
Yeah.
But what do you think about expectations for movies with a specific director? I mean,
Great question.
Reese nailed it pretty much on like his feelings of, well, I kind of didn't know what I was getting into, and I
Right.
hope I could appreciate it more if I was more on board.
Yeah.
But what are your opinions on, like, as an audience member, holding on to expectations?
Yeah, I was just talking to a coworker yesterday about this because we were talking about Greta Gerwig, and we were talking about Barbie, because we were talking about Christopher Nolan and Greta Gerwig because Barbie and Oppenheimer are coming at the same time.
Yeah.
And we talked about how much we both love Lady Bird and Little Women, and so now we're kind of on board for anything Greta Gerwig is doing. But honestly, the first trailer that I saw of Barbie, I'm like, I don't really know where they're going with this or what's going to be happening. Like,
Yeah.
initially, what I've seen has not been super gripping to me.
Yeah.
But just because Greta Gerwig is behind the wheel of this movie,
Yeah.
I'm instantly sold. Like, and even from what I saw from the trailer, I just trust Greta Gerwig is going to take it somewhere where it's
Yeah.
going to somehow like get really real and like emotional at some point, or it's gonna take some direction that like I just trust her. And from the last 2 movies, I'm like, I know she's gonna do something really interesting, and she has something to say. So even though I don't feel like I've been shown that yet from the promos and things like that, like even just Barbie, because it's Greta Gerwig, I just know in my heart like it's gonna go, you know, to the next level. I feel like
that sounds scary. The expectations are just like hopes.
Yeah.
And then I was like relaying it back into relationships again. I was like high hopes for someone.
Yeah.
It doesn't tend to go well.
Sometimes.
But
Talk about it,
Talk about your disappointments with relationships.
but I would say it's like based on what she has done in the past. So it's like, oh, based on how this person, like, you know, the character of the person.
Yeah.
I'm the parallel of relationships and movie expectations we're doing right now. But that's so interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I think with certain directors it can be like it can be good to like know like kind of the genre they tend to work in, because like when you're going to the movie knowing what genre it's going to be. But I think especially for certain like super stylistic directors that use like film super stylistically, I think it's good to know like what they're trying to do. Like Wes Anderson, I think Edgar Wright is kind of in that category where he does like you have to expect like his like really like kinetic like quick moving like you have to kind of expect that, or else you're gonna be like, why?
I think Robert Eggers too is a really,
really?
unique kind of, you know.
That's fair.
I've thought in the past how like since Wes Anderson has such a specific like stylized way of making films that like he feels like stuck in that now.
Yeah. Definitely.
Like you can't break away from it because everyone's expecting him to make movies like that. That I always wanted to ask him.
Yeah.
Hey.
Why? Yeah. Yeah, I think I've soured a little bit on his newer movies. I think one complaint I have them is that they're kind of style over substance, and that they're like don't get to the emotional kind of core that like Bottle Rocket or like the Royal Tenenbaums or Fantastic Mr. Fox get to. But I think that there is one reason that I'm not necessarily super excited for a lot of new Wes Anderson movies is because like I know that it's going to be a very similar style and a very similar thing to like, and I'm like, I'm kind of already seen this before. I don't know.
Yeah, I wonder if he's feeling that himself.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. If he's like trying to break out a little bit. I don't know. Yeah. Cool. Well, thank you for watching this episode of the podcast, or listening, probably listening.
Yeah. Any last thoughts?
Maybe I'll watch Bottle Rocket again before next time, and I'll have an update.
Amazing.
That's what I'll say. And
you should
hopefully
watch
Fantastic
his
Mr.
other
Fox.
films.
Yeah.
And then circle back.
Yeah. I'll let you know what I think.
Fantastic Mr. Fox is like one of my favorite movies. Like more so than Bottle Rocket. Like I love Fantastic Mr. Fox.
All right.
I loved that book as a kid, and then was wildly entertained by the movie. I became a fan of his because of that and Grand Budapest.
That was my first film.
Really?
Grand Budapest.
That was Fantastic Mr. Fox. Fantastic Mr. Fox was my first Wes Anderson, and I was kind of like you, where I was like, I don't get this. This is kind of like weird pacing, and I don't love this. And then I think I watched it again, and I didn't love it. And then I watched, I think, like his different movies and stuff like that, and I was like, okay, I kind of get this, and I like it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And now it's one of your favorites.
Yeah.
Wow.
Super bizarre. But
All right.
yeah.
Cool.
Well, let's close out, and we will see you guys next time.
Thank you.
Bye.